Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome to another episode of Love and Abuse. It's been a while. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. I say it's been a while because if you are subscribed to this show, you haven't heard from me in months. What's going on? I have been working on a program to help abusive people. As you've probably heard before, it's called Healed Being. You know, I've created the MEAN workbook. The victims of emotional abuse read that, and they get to pinpoint exactly what's going on in their relationship and decide what steps they're going to take next. And then I have the other program, Healed Being, which is the other side of the coin, helping people who want to stop hurting those they love. And it took me a while to finalize everything in that program. I'm finally done. So the program's been available for a while, but that's what I've been doing. I've been working on that to help everyone that listens to this show. Most of the people that listen to this show are victims of something: control, manipulation, toxic behavior, and emotional abuse. All of that wrapped into one big bucket. And also the abusive people, the hurtful people, the ones that may or may not want to hurt. Yes, there are people that do want to hurt others, and they want to stop. Those people who listen to this show, they want to stop. I'm hoping they want to stop. Not everyone that listens to this show wants to stop. In fact, the person I was many years ago didn't want to stop because I really, really believed I was right. And it's hard to admit that because looking back, I don't even know that guy anymore. Who the hell was that guy? But I believed I was right. I believed my thoughts, my concept of love was correct. But it wasn't. And it took what I call something to shake my foundation. Something had to shake my foundation. And my foundation got shaken, shaken, several times over my life because every important relationship to me failed. It ended. They left. So that shook my foundation. But it wasn't fully shaken enough for me to change my behavior until I was married and my wife wanted a divorce. That's when I took things seriously. That's when I realized, okay, this is like the third or fourth major relationship I've had throughout my decades of relationships. I mean, I haven't had that many, but the major ones in my life ended, and it wasn't me that ended them. They just kept leaving me. So her saying, I want a divorce, that was it. I knew something had to change. And it was the first time I took responsibility for it. Because before I would have said, or I did say, they left, they have a problem. Which they did. They had a problem with me, but I believed that they had issues, not me. I had a narcissistically high view of myself, or at least I really believed that I was doing the right things. And the problem with that is that you don't look inward. You don't reflect. You don't think to yourself, okay, if I was wrong, and I might ask myself this question if I was going through this again, if I was doing something wrong, what would it be? I think that's a good question to ask yourself. If I was doing something wrong, what would it be? I mean, this is for the people who know they're doing the right thing, and yet people are still leaving them, people are still hurting them. So if you are, let's just say, the person that has hurt a person that you love or people that you love, if you don't believe you were wrong, ask yourself, if I was wrong, how would that be? What would that look like? What did I do? Because what you're doing is you're challenging yourself and you're challenging your belief that you were always right, but maybe there's something deeper that you need to look at. I talk about that in Healed Being as well. Reflection, just stopping and being humble, being vulnerable, and asking yourself a question. Okay, what did I do? How did I cause this? How am I responsible for this? And you can't get away with saying, I'm not. You can't say, I'm not responsible for this. They are, because we all take responsibility for our role in any relationship. And so to say, okay, my role in this was X, and then find something. Find what your role was. So if I were to put myself in my own shoes back when I was married and ask myself, how am I responsible for her sadness? Back then, I would have said, it's not my fault. She's the one that's sad. I don't know what's going on with her, but all she has to do is X, Y, Z. Defining what she has to do, which is part of what I was doing. I was trying to control her, trying to make her do things that she didn't want to do. Or maybe she did, but because someone was trying to control her, she didn't really feel loved at all. And so asking myself that question, okay, how am I responsible for her sadness? That puts me in a different state of mind, puts me in a different space. And maybe for the first time, I think about her from her perspective. This is really activating empathy. I'm putting myself in an empathetic space so I can try what it's like to be her. So if I think about what it's like to be her and why I'm sad, I can come up with a few things for sure. Well, maybe I'm sad because he didn't give me a loving look. He gave me a dirty look. That wouldn't feel very good. Maybe I'm sad because instead of having fun, he put me down. He made me feel bad about what I was doing. He made me feel guilty. You can do this in any relationship that you're in. What is my role? What is my responsibility? What did I do if I did do something wrong? And again, this is more for the person that feels that they may have hurt the other person or knows they hurt the other person, or the other person in their life always seems confused, sad, upset, and you don't think there's anything wrong with you. You think it's them. So it's important to maybe run these reflective questions by yourself and ask yourself, if I did hurt this person, what did I do? There's another one. And it can be helpful. This is, again, turning on empathy, being in their shoes so that you can get their perspective. Now, what I started to talk about, or I think I started to talk about, was the idea of shaking your foundation. This is when you are shaken out of your trance-like state. And to the victim of emotional abuse, control, and manipulation, the person that is doing that to you, they can be in this trance-like state like I was. I believed I was right. It was very hypnotic. It's not a good way to put it, but really it feels that way because I didn't believe anything else. I believed I was right. I believed that they needed to listen to me, that I had all the answers, and if they only listened to me, we would both be happy. Again, it sucks to admit this, but that's who I was, and I'm sharing this with you in hopes that that is not something that continues in your life if it is in your life. So if you are in this dynamic where somebody is hurting you or making you feel bad, making you feel guilty, making you feel sad, and you just can't figure out what to do about it, you can't figure out how to be any different, or you want to be yourself, but being yourself is the problem, sometimes the person doing that to you needs their foundation shaken so much that it jostles their brain, it jostles their behavior. It makes them realize, oh, you really are serious. It really is something I'm doing. It sounds like I'm making an excuse for them, and I'm not. I have no excuse for my behavior except that I didn't dig deeper into my own psyche and figure this stuff out sooner. But here I am. I figured stuff out. And I'm sharing this with you because I know back then that my foundation needed shaking. It's sort of like when I did the silent treatment. I used to use the silent treatment a lot to make my partner feel guilty. And what that also did was make them feel unloved and unworthy of love. And they're not worth talking to. That was, I'm sure, their belief. Like, I'm not even worth talking to. I'm not even worth sharing what's going on with them. So here I am feeling, as them, I'm feeling unloved. I'm feeling unworthy. And I also feel guilty because I guess I did something wrong to hurt them. And that's a very difficult place because when you are supposed to have a loving relationship and the person goes silent, what's going on? There's two types of silent treatment, or mainly. The first type is, I got to process what just happened. Leave me alone. I got to process this. I don't know what's going on. It's not my intention to withhold love or connection from you. I just need to figure out what's going on. I need to do this for myself. That's the first kind, and that's a healthy kind. Something big happens, you got to process it. The unhealthy kind, dysfunctional kind, manipulative kind, is when you purposefully are silent to hurt someone else or make them feel bad or make them feel like they did something wrong. It's all in the intention. One is, I intend to be silent so I can process this. The other is, I intend to be silent to teach them something or control them in some way. And so the manipulative silent treatment is what I would do. And I had always wished that my partner called me out on it. And I'm not putting it on them, I'm not blaming them, but at the time when I was in these relationships, I really think that it would have shaken me so much if my partner called me out on those times I was abusive like that. And the silent treatment is a good example because I did that a lot. And what I mean by that is if, let's just say my wife said, you know what, are you trying to make me feel guilty? You're silent, and when you're silent, I don't know where you are, and it feels like you want me to feel bad. So is that what you're trying to do? I wish he had done that. Now, I'm not saying that would have shaken up my foundation enough for me to break that, bad habit, but it certainly would have made me conscientious that she was conscientious. It would have made me consciously aware that she knew what was going on. And a lot of the times that's not going to happen, where the victim of emotional abuse is going to know what's going on, and then they're going to call you out on it because they're trying to sort things out. They're trying to figure out, maybe I did do something wrong. Maybe this is my fault. That's often what happens. Maybe this is my fault, so I don't really have a right to say anything. But hopefully with this show and other learning you're doing, or therapy, or whatever you're studying out there, whatever you're trying to figure out what's going on in your life, that you're starting to realize, wait, there's a pattern to this behavior. The pattern I often note in many emotionally abusive situations is that bad behavior brings about secondary gain. You've heard me talk about this before if you've been listening a while, but it's something they gain from doing the bad behavior. What is it? Like in my silent treatment, I always gained my partner treating me nicer. They already treated me nice, but I got extra attention. They doted on me. They snuggled with me. They loved me in ways that were very close and intimate, and it was nice. I was actually getting a benefit from doing abusive behavior. It was a secondary gain, and it helped to continue the cycle of abuse by them doing the behavior that fed into that abuse and also fed into some deep insecurities in me to help me fulfill my own needs. Because that's a lot of the times what emotional abuse is fulfilling your own needs in an abusive way. So if I had a fear of abandonment, I might become possessive and jealous. I might do the silent treatment to create guilt and also make them more loving toward me. And all of these abusive behaviors lead to my needs getting fulfilled regardless of what they needed. And that is where the abuse is certainly an imbalance in the relationship. It creates an imbalance in the relationship. The abuse creates the needs of one getting fulfilled while the needs of the other are getting drained. And the more they feel drained, the more likely the abuser is draining them to get their own needs met. So if you are listening now and you feel drained, you could probably look over to the other person and ask yourself, are they getting their needs met? Because it sure as hell seems like they are. This is my guess for you if you're in this situation. I hope not, but if you are, this is what this show's about. You're looking at the other person and you're saying, are they getting their needs met by doing this stuff? When they do this pattern of behavior, are they getting some need met? And just ask yourself, what is their secondary gain? What do I do when they do this bad behavior that benefits them? What do I do? How do I step into this trap? Because that's what it can feel like when you actually understand what's going on, when you have clarity about what's happening and why they're doing this. Emotional abuse is about using and reusing old unhealthy coping mechanisms. It's about getting needs fulfilled in an unhealthy way and sometimes hurtful or often hurtful way, very selfish. And when those needs get fulfilled because of bad behavior, guess what happens? They repeat the bad behavior because it works. This is why shaking their foundation might actually knock them out of their trance. They are just in this repetitive cycle of abusing, getting their needs met, abusing, getting their needs met. And then you say, you know what? I'm leaving. Whoa. And I'm not saying this is the way you shake your foundation, but it's certainly one big way to do it. You know, if this is a romantic relationship, I'm leaving. I can't take it anymore. You keep hurting me. I don't know what's going on inside of you. I don't know why you're doing it. You see me crying. You see that I'm in pain. You see that I'm getting depressed. I'm losing my zest for life. And it's you're doing this, and I can't take it anymore. To the person who's been abusive, it's going to be rattling their foundation so much, hopefully, that they say, wow, I didn't realize that I was doing all this stuff. I better stop. But by then, is your heart still open? Do you still want to connect? Do you still want to be intimate with them? That's the tough part, is that when you've reached your threshold, it's very difficult to be connecting with them again. In fact, a lot of people will close their heart for good. That's it. They've reached their threshold. They've had enough. It's my breaking point. I'm done. In the program, Healed Being, I talk about the threshold. When someone reaches the threshold, they're either A, open to the other person healing and changing, or B, not open at all. That's it. That's how I've seen this. They're either open and willing to see what happens by, they're going to wait and see what happens, and they're going to figure out if there's still a connection here and still worth working, if it's still worth working on, or B, their heart is sealed shut and they don't care if they change. They don't care if they show up as a completely different person. They're done. And when someone's done, there's nothing you can do. If someone's done, they are done. They've shut their heart. They've sealed it tight. I remember at the end of my marriage, I made a lot of changes and she didn't recognize me anymore. I mean, this was a good thing because who I was unhealthy and dysfunctional. And so when she didn't recognize me anymore, that was a good sign. And she really loved what she saw. But she was out of love. She had lost her intimate connection with me. She had closed her heart to me, and it was painful. But I completely understand why, and she should have done that. She should have closed her heart to me, because if she didn't, my foundation would never have been shaken. That doesn't mean I'm telling you to close your heart. I'm telling you that you need to reach a threshold sometimes. And when you reach that threshold, you can shake someone's foundation. by saying, no more. I've had enough. I'm done. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this in my life. So you've got to work on whatever you're working on, but I can't be in your life anymore. Or I'm going to take a month off, or I'm going to do something else. I'm going to sleep on the couch. I'm going to not call you anymore. Whatever it is. They have to realize that there's true accountability for their bad behavior. And some people still don't get it. Some people will still say, fine, F you then, I'll just go and I'll find somebody else. Some people are like that. And then you really have to question how much their heart was in the relationship in the first place. If they're willing to just go seek someone else, then, there's nothing you can do about that. And it just shows where their heart is, and what they're trying to do is fulfill their own needs without regard for yours. And I hate to even put that out there because, yes, I know some people are listening and they're thinking that's exactly what I'm going through. They just don't seem to care no matter what I do. And that's when absolutely you have to understand that that's never going to change. Certain people will never change. And at the same time, I've seen people do a complete 180 and change. I've seen it over and over again. I've seen relationships heal because of this, because of somebody wanting to change. But there's no denying a person's heart when it closes, it's done. Sometimes it's very rare. Sometimes they'll reopen it. You may want to reopen it later because everything else was great except for all this bad behavior. But a lot of the times when they've shut it, they've sealed it shut, it's welded shut, there's nothing that's going to open that heart up again. And so this is the point where you just have to move on. And that can happen too. And so the premise of today's episode is shaking the foundation. It is understanding that some behavior doesn't stop until you shake that foundation so much that they realize how serious you are. And it's really sad that I have to tell you that this is how you show how serious you are. I mean, of course, you can say, look, you need to stop or else. You need to stop or I'm done. I mean, this is the kind of conversation you have before the end, before you seal your heart. Hopefully you can have that conversation. But some people, they don't want to hear it. They don't think it's real until it's real. So even saying, look, if you don't stop, I'm not going to take this anymore, isn't enough. I hope it's enough for whatever you're going through. I hope it's enough. But some people, they don't get it until it's fully in their face. Oh, this is really happening? And I say this not to put those people down because I was that person. That was me. It had to be in my face. There had to be a breakup. There had to be a divorce. There had to be something so big, such a big loss, that I realized, oh, now you're serious. And I don't know, I feel stupid for not seeing it sooner, but that's the way it was. And so let me just end this episode with a question that somebody wrote to me. She asked, can self-awareness be learned? That's a great question. Can self-awareness be learned? Okay, I'm aware of my environment. I'm aware of what my hands are doing. I'm aware of my thoughts and emotions. Can I be aware of my behavior? And I'm assuming she's asking because she wants to know if somebody can be self-aware of their own behaviors so that they stop those behaviors. Or they're self-aware of those behaviors and they know they're doing the behaviors and they don't care. So there's probably a multi-level aspect to this question, but that's how I'm taking it. She's asking, can someone learn self-awareness? And my answer to that is not necessarily a yes or no. It is more of an accountability question again. So let's just say that someone is mistreating you and you don't like how they're treating you, or you can't figure out what they're doing to hurt you, but you always feel hurt or confused. But when you're in public, they don't do the same behavior. But in private, they do this behavior. Public, they're different. Private, they're like this. That tells me right there that they are self-aware. There's no learning needed. They are self-aware, because if they don't do the same thing in public as they do in private, And in private, they are being hurtful. They are guilting you. They are confusing you. They are making you angry. They're making you sad. They're putting you down. If they're doing all that stuff in private but not in public, then they are fully aware they are doing it. And they're fully aware they're doing it because they know not to do it in public. That's really the bottom line to this. Can self-awareness be learned? I would ask the question, are they really already self-aware? That's the real question. Are they already self-aware? Because if you wrote to me and said, they put me down and they belittle me and they call me names and they make me feel guilty and they give me the silent treatment in private, but when we're in public, oh, they're charming, they're kind, they're generous. People see a completely different version of them. That tells me they're aware of their behavior because they know to hide it in front of others. And it still may be something that is ingrained in they're using unhealthy coping mechanisms, old survival mechanisms. It could still be that, but why don't they do it in public? It's because they've learned that doing it in public exposes them. It exposes their true behaviors. And so they'll hide it. And they'll do it at home, which just tells me up and down that they are self-aware. Now the next question is, can they help it? Anybody can control behavior that they're aware of, and they know how to control when they're around others. But don't put those same control mechanisms on when they're with someone in private. So if they know how to control it in one environment and don't choose to control it in another environment, then they're aware of it and they know how to control it. They're just choosing not to at those times. Now, this doesn't discount the idea that they may still have these unhealthy coping mechanisms that because they're around people that they are most vulnerable with, those who know them the best, the romantic relationships, family, and things like that, in private, because they are more exposed in front of those people, they have less ability to handle things in a healthy way. So these are the people that haven't learned how to develop healthier coping mechanisms, and now they're relying on old, lifelong coping mechanisms and survival skills instead of reflecting on those behaviors and trying to heal from the behaviors they're doing, because in private they think they're right. In private they think that this is the way you're supposed to act. So there's a double-edged sword here where you have somebody that doesn't act a certain way in public, showing that they realize their behavior is not that good, so they better not show it to anyone else. At the same time, when they're in private and they feel like they can be themselves, that behavior comes out and they don't control it because they believe they're right. And that's just a dichotomy in how it plays out. But coming back to the self-awareness question is, yeah, they are aware because they would actually do it in public as well. Now, this can happen. Some people do it in public. Some people are hurtful in public. But how do they do it? Do they do it under their breath? Do they do it in full view of complete strangers? I mean, how do they do it? When do they do it? And do they filter themselves? Do they control that behavior around certain people in certain environments? You can tell. You can tell what's going on and if they're hiding it from others. Now, if they do have some sort of cognitive dysfunction or challenge that prevents them from filtering or controlling their behavior, then you're going to see the same behavior out in public as you do at home. And that's a different story. They may have something going on, some sort of condition, or something that needs to be taken care of through a medical diagnosis or whatever, some sort of help there. But in general, the people that hide that stuff in public know what's going on, and they just have to make a choice. They have to make a choice if they're going to continue hurting the relationship by hurting the person they're with, or deciding that maybe there is something that I'm doing that hurts that person, and I guess it's time to reflect on that and ask myself, what am I doing so that I can start changing this behavior? And that might be the first step into something better. And if they don't step into something better, if they don't start healing that, then it might be your job, if you're the victim of emotional abuse, to say, that's it. I've had enough. You might have to shake their foundation so much that it just takes them out of that trance and makes them realize, if I don't do something, I'm going to lose what I really care about most. Even though it doesn't feel like they care, there's a lot of love inside them, and a lot of hurt, and a lot of fear, and a lot of insecurity, at least in the people I've worked with. There's a lot of that inside them, but that's no excuse. They should not treat you that way. And if you've had enough, you can say, I've had enough. That's it. And of course, pick your battles wisely. I'm not going to tell you to tell this to some violent person that's going to do something terrible to you. I want you to be safe. I want you to prepare and plan for something like that. If somebody is aggressive or violent in your life, you need to take different steps. You need to prepare that in advance, silently, covertly. You don't want to incite any further behavior. You just want to take things slowly and carefully. For the most part, most relationships are just emotional suffering. It's emotional pain, and you just want to stop that pain. You want to stop that feeling that you have, and it might just involve being upfront, being direct. Sometimes that's all you have to do is just be direct, saying, that's it, stop. Stop. That could be your new mantra, stop. Thanks for joining me today. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. You can download the workbook today to help you determine if you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. It'll give you the tools to pinpoint the specific unhealthy behaviors causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad. If you're in a difficult relationship and you want to know what your next step should be, the assessment and the workbook will help you make decisions that are right for you. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. And if you've discovered that you are doing emotionally abusive behavior and you'd like to change that about yourself, sign up for the Healed Being program over at healedbeing.com. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant because you are. We'll talk again soon.